climate change that we're facing back home, the change in weather patterns, sea level rise, is because of this, because of industries like this.
It was pretty overwhelming. Never seen land so ripped apart like that before.
Divest LA is going to be holding a press conference for everyone to hear, where we're going to be officially and formally announcing our proposed responsible banking ordinance for the City Council and the Budget and Finance Committee to be considering today.
The City of Los Angeles should answer this call and pay heed to the people. Seattle did it. They have a framework of how to do it. It can't be easily done, but it can be done.
The call that went out by the brothers and sisters of Standing Rock sparked a fire. And today that fire is roaring. And the city of Los Angeles can continue to feed that fire by divesting from Wells Fargo.
We have the opportunity to not only divest from an institution that is vapid, but to reinvest in institutions that are more congruent with our values as Angelinas. Thank you guys.
This is what a revolution looks like. This is the beginning of a paradigm shift that future generations will look back on as the beginning of the end of the colonizers, the oligarchs, the banksters, and the oppressors, and the rise of the power of people and planet.
But at this point, there's no way to make the climate math work one person at a time. We also need to work together as a nation and as a planet. And here are a few of the obvious steps. 1, we need to put a price on carbon. We allow the fossil fuel industry to pour CO2 into the atmosphere for free. They're the only ones who get to do that. Every other industry has to pay to deal with its trash. Think of a restaurant, say. It can't just shovel its garbage out into the street at the end of the evening, even though that would be the cheapest way to deal with it. But that's what the fossil fuel industry does. It uses the atmosphere as a great free open sewer. The climate scientist Jim Hansen has long advocated for a fee on carbon that would tilt the playing field away from fossil fuels.
As long as we allow fossil fuels to be a cheap energy, then somebody is going to keep burning them. So the way to deal with this is to put a rising fee, collect it from the fossil fuel companies at the source, the domestic mine or ports of entry, and give the money to the public, because only then will the public allow the fee to continue to rise. And that has to happen if we're going to phase out fossil fuels. Otherwise, even if some of us make a big effort not to reduce our fossil fuel use, someone else will burn the fossil fuels. So we have to make the price of fossil fuels honest. And that means they've got to include their cost to society.
We need to put a price tag on carbon emissions and eliminate government subsidies for oil, coal, and gas companies. We need to end the free ride that industrial polluters have been given in the name of a free market economy. They do not deserve our tax dollars. They deserve our scrutiny, for the economy itself will die if our ecosystems collapse. The good news is that renewable energy is not only achievable, this is not a partisan debate, it is a human one. Clean air and a livable climate are inalienable human rights. And solving this crisis is not a question of politics, it is a question of our own survival. This is the most urgent of times and the most urgent of messages.
Keep it in the ground. While we're doing the right thing, we've got to stop doing the wrong thing, which is digging up new coal and oil and gas. The latest research shows that we need to leave 80% of fossil fuels that we know about under the ground. The oil companies don't like this, of course. Their business plan calls for digging up all these reserves and burning them. But people have managed to block those plans over and over again, from Keystone to Standing Rock to the harbors of Seattle and Portland. Sometimes these wins are only temporary, but they're crucial in buying time. Activism managed to convince President Obama to stop new coal leases on federal land, a law overturned by Mr. Trump. But we've got to keep fighting. If you don't live near a pipeline or a coal mine, one way you can help out is by joining the fossil fuel divestment campaign.
We have to move quickly, which means we can't get stuck with false solutions. For instance, some years ago, politicians started touting natural gas as a bridge fuel, because when you burn it, you produce less carbon than when you burn coal. That's one reason that fracking wells started to appear across the country, damaging water supplies and splitting communities. But scientists quickly learned that so much methane, a potent greenhouse gas just like CO2, was leaking from these wells that, on balance, burning gas was as bad as burning coal. Fracking was a dead end, a waste of time and resources that locked us into decades of more fossil fuel consumption. That's why activists worked so hard to ban fracking in New York, where I live.
It is also crucial that as we make progress, we have to remember that fairness is important. Not everyone has caused this problem. In fact, one of the truly disturbing things about fossil fuels is that it does the most damage to the places that have done the least to cause the problem. That's true in the US. Think of people who have to live near refineries or coal mines. And it's true around the world. The continents that are suffering the most as the planet warms are places like Africa or Asia, where per capita rates of carbon emissions are far smaller than in the US. So as we design plans, from carbon pricing to building out renewables, we have to make sure we do it with fairness in mind. Across America, frontline communities are leading the climate fight, and around the world, indigenous people are in the forefront of the battle. We need to back them up.
The good news is that this process is already underway around much of the world. Sometimes American politicians say, why should we do anything if China's going to keep burning coal? But in fact, the Chinese, who per person produce far less carbon than we do, have begun to cut their coal use. They're installing renewable energy faster than any place on Earth. That's one reason why the U.S. should live up to its commitments in international agreements like the Paris Accords. If we don't, everyone else is going to be ahead of us in this transition. To be entirely honest, we don't know for absolute sure that we can still slow down global warming enough to matter. We've waited a very long time to get started. But the best science indicates that we have a chance, a narrow window, a window that's closing fast. That means we need your actions, and we need them now, around your house, around your town, but also around the White House and the House of Representatives and the State House. We need you in the streets making noise, because the most important source of power we've got is people power. Let's put it to work.
Changing weather patterns, sea level rise, is because of this, because of industries like this.
It was pretty overwhelming. Never seen land so ripped apart like that before.
So the effects of climate change that we're facing back home